Hello. In this extended video, you are going to get a complete view of when to use the past tense and when to use the present perfect in English. What we need to understand first is that the past tense expresses an action that is over. For example, I only studied geography when I was in secondary school, which is true. I haven't studied geography since. Now, I'm not in secondary school anymore, so both of these actions are over. I studied and I was in secondary school. I'm no longer studying geography. The present perfect, on the other hand, expresses an action that is not entirely over or has some relevance to the present. I have spoken to him. This would be the present perfect. We'll meet next week to discuss the details. Clearly, the fact that we have spoken has some consequences in the present and, as we can see, in the future here as well. So we have to keep it connected to the present. We use the present perfect. I have spoken to him. Now, another thing about the past tense is that it needs a specified time in the past. For example, when I said I studied geography when I was in secondary school, I specified being in secondary school. I specified that period of time in my life in the past when I studied geography. Alternatives to this would be I studied geography in 2003, which is a very specific moment in the past. Or I studied for a geography class yesterday. Yesterday, once again, is a moment that has passed. It's completely over. Or I studied geography last year. Clearly done. I studied geography 20 years ago. Once again, done. Over. I'm not studying geography anymore. Present perfect is a little more vague about timing. You could simply say I've spoken to him and not mention any adverb whatsoever. No time whatsoever. You leave it in the present perfect because the time is unspecified. There are also adverbs that indicate this vagueness of time around the present moment, like I have spoken to him, I have already spoken to him, or I have spoken to him recently, I've recently spoken to him, or I have spoken to him lately, of course. Another example would be I have spoken to him today or this week, because today and this week are not over. They are ongoing, so they are relevant to the present moment. I've never spoken to him is an interesting one. Never is interesting because technically the action has never happened. So we can't say it's in the past, which is why we use the present perfect. And I haven't spoken to him, we should consider the negative because we use it with I haven't spoken to him yet or so far, but it means that I am still able to speak to him in the future maybe. And an interesting case is since. Since is the one that bridges the gap. Since brings the present and the past together. Take this example. I haven't spoken to him since we met at that concert last year. We have the present perfect, since, the past tense. And I always advise my students to repeat this like a mantra. Present perfect since past tense. Haven't spoken since we met. Present perfect since past tense. Since requires both tenses. So let's recap a bit. Let's look at our adverbs or clues, as I like to call them. I talked to him and I have talked to him. Remember that you can just say I've talked to him and it's absolutely okay. The time is very vague when we use the present perfect, but when you use the past tense, you actually need to be very specific. I talked to him when I saw him at work versus I have never talked to him, for example, or I have talked to him lately. I have already talked to him, which require the present perfect. Or I talked to him yesterday, definitely done, definitely in the past, versus I have talked to him today. Today is not over. I talked to him last year is very similar to yesterday, and I have talked to him this year is very similar to today because this year is not over, it's ongoing. Now, I talked to him 3 days ago or in 2019 could be interpreted as something recent. So if we say recently, we don't specify exactly when the action happened, and we use it with the present perfect. I have recently talked to him. Now, if you need a quick recap of these notions, of these things, watch the 2-minute short video about past tense versus present perfect and keep you're learning, going. Good luck, everyone.